Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast. Me and Alex are here today. No George, but he's got some special news. Tunes are come. Alex, we're back from Dubai.
Back.
You see, one of us brought someone
You
back.
caught the Dubai lurgy.
No, I don't
What
wanna
were
say
you
it's Dubai
doing?
lurgy.
What were you doing, Bhavs?
I got
Mm.
it was tonsillitis, and I hadn't caught it from no one. It was just
Okay.
maybe it was the food. I tell you what, right? If you ever go to Dubai, go to Global Village. Go to Global Village. That place there, honestly insane. The food, lights, photos.
Where is
amazing.
that? Is that near the beach? Is that Jumeirah? Is it?
It's in Jumeirah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's in Jumeirah. Atlantis was pretty good, the water park, but
Yeah.
oh my god, Global Village, bro, that place is insane.
Yeah.
There's like all these different parts of the world. You can go to Europe, Africa, Asia, everywhere.
Yeah. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing, but it just does. I honestly, for me, maybe it's just my taste. It was like too much after a while. I was like, I came back today. It's just every day, everything's like, right. My sister as well, she's one of those people who just plans like, right, 9 a.m. till 1:36, we're doing this. And just everything's like, right, we're doing this and glow in the dark jet skiing. And then we're doing this like, Jesus Christ.
Did you go glow in the dark jet ski? You went to that?
We did do that.
I was going to say, I wanted to do that.
It was good though. It was good though. But you've caught the Dubai lurgy, and we won't say off who or what.
I didn't catch you with anyone, but you can speculate all you want.
Okay.
Let's talk about Gabriel.
Let the comments decide.
Let's talk about Gabriel Martinelli.
He wants to move off it.
Let's segue. Liverpool versus Arsenal, 1-1 draw. We watched them both in Dubai. We talked about it, I think, on the instant reaction. But let's break it down more specifically on Gabriel Martinelli. Now, since the game, there's been a lot of Twitter X debates about how Martinelli is either out of form or misused. So let's talk about right now, Alex. What are your current thoughts on Gabriel Martinelli so far this season? I think he's got 2 league goals. I'm pretty sure. And it's no one is as great as last season, which he had 15. So what are your current thoughts on Gabriel Martinelli?
Just realised I had 2 of my pens. I like Gary Neville has this tip about holding pens when you're analysing something. I realise I have 2. So my analysis is going to be double as bad today. So the Martinelli thing. So Arteta was speaking in his press conference earlier, and he said something along the lines of one of the people in the questions was asking about like, oh, is it a confidence thing or is it what is it? And Arteta basically said, with Martinelli, it's never a confidence issue. It's not going to be a confidence issue because this is a guy, and he said something along the lines of like one of the best in the world are just going and doing something again and again and again and again. I think it's probably a little bit of a confidence thing, but to me, I think writing this off as a totally confidence thing, which I've seen people do, I think is a little bit reductive for me personally. I think if you look at what's going on, there's a number of things. Firstly, Martinelli was receiving the ball too early and too wide as a general rule. For anyone, if you're as boring as me and on your holidays you do this, I went on Who Scored and looked at the last sort of 5 or 6 games. Martinelli, just look at the touch maps. You can look at them on the match reports, and you can compare Saka and Martinelli, where Saka receives the ball and where Martinelli received the ball. Martinelli's way wider, he's way further up the pitch, and Saka's way deeper in the pitch. So that's one issue. So he's further away from goal, and that already causes him a problem. That was an issue last season, but I think it's been exacerbated by the fact that Xhaka was a lot more facilitative than in terms of around Martinelli, in terms of dropping in and allowing him to maybe step in a little bit more. Xhaka didn't pull wide as much, but I think Martinelli allowed himself to sort of play off Xhaka a little bit more. And I feel Jesus as well has become less prone to drift to the left, so allowing Martinelli inside. I think he's more dropping. I think if you look at his heat maps as well, Jesus is dropping a lot more deeper. And obviously we're seeing Havertz on the last line a little bit more. And also, you look at the build-up. You can look at Saka, he's one of the best wide receivers in the world. You look at Saliba, who's probably got a right-sided bias. Rice has probably got just a tad of a right-sided bias. Raya's right-footed. So all of these things come together to cause us a problem. I suppose you could call it a problem. We're top of the league, so we're nitpicking. But maybe I'll flip it back to you. Do you want to see us fix this? I mean, I'd like to see us fix it, but I think I do worry that we're kind of taking something that isn't broken and trying to fix it. And if we, our attack seems to be moving in the right direction, and if we completely remodel it just to try and make Martinelli a bit closer to goal, I don't know. I'm not completely sold on that idea.
There's always a player that misses out. there is no attack that has each and every single part of the function just scoring goals and getting assists. I think everyone feels like this. There'll be a point where Havertz has 20 goals assists, Martinelli has the same, Saka is the same, so does Jesus. It doesn't happen. Look at Man City.
Yeah.
Haaland comes in, he gets his goals, but everyone else is kind of not as much as the same as used to be, right? But they used to have everyone else getting goals and no Jesus not having the same amount of goals either. So you have to have a sacrifice. I'm not saying we're sacrificing Martinelli's goals. I can see why fans are concerned because they want their best finisher finishing the chances and they feel like he's not getting those chances. But he is as well. Let's not act like he's getting no chances. Liverpool, we had a very good chance where Saka kind of went round the goalkeeper, kind of left it, and then he should have scored. So he's had a few chances, but I definitely agree with the fact that he should be getting into more central positions. But I don't know.
Yeah. It is just to come back on that. It is an issue. Like I'm not suggesting it isn't, but I just where it is in my kind of canon of issues in terms of Arsenal right now. It's not really that high. Like I'd love to see Martinelli scoring more goals, but that feels more aesthetic. And I love the player, and I'd like to see him. But he's doing his job out of possession really well. He's getting in those positions. He might not be finishing it off, but I never worry about that with Martinelli. That doesn't feel like, because as Arteta said, the reason I started with it is because he's one of those players who you're not going to have to ask Martinelli to create some motivation in himself. He's going to keep going, and he'll play himself through this. So I don't know, personally, I'm not that worried about it.
Fans need to understand that we've got this idea that we want a Victor Osimhen profile, a goal-scoring machine. If we get that profile, that's not going to help Martinelli elevate his goal scoring levels. By the way, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to have 3 Mo Salahs in one team. You have that one goal scoring player, and then you have other players like 15 to 10. And that's what I think Martinelli will be. But I think fans have this idea because he's a good finisher that he can be a 30-goal striker, which he probably could be if he was our main goal scorer. But there might be a reason why Mikel Arteta doesn't see him yet as that main outlet, and he's looking for an Osimhen on top of that. And Martinelli's also a very creative player. His creativity is very underrated, and I feel like there's definitely ways to better utilize him. But Mikel probably thinks sustainability-wise, and he probably thinks that having a Havertz profile, who maybe he's not as good a finisher as Martinelli, but I'd say has better movement, will fashion you more opportunities, or will fashion you more moments over the course of a season.
Yeah, and we're seeing, we're seeing Havertz adapt to the team, and as we give all the, I don't want to use the word excuses, but we give all the reasons why Havertz has maybe struggled to adapt to this team is because he's not had the same amount of very similar profiles behind him very often. He's coming into a new team, our attack model is slightly changing, how we're attacking is slightly changing, we're having more of the ball, etc., etc. That goes for other players in the team too. So Martinelli is going to adapt slightly, and he was further in last season. The only thing I'll say is I have been confused by his usage by Arteta slightly in terms of in games where we've needed an outlet, he's taken him off.
Yeah,
that's felt strange to me, and I don't know whether that's. I'd love to ask him many questions, but I'd love to ask him why he did that. Whether he was looking for more ball retention or whatever. Again, I think we're going to come to the Havertz situation later. All these things are linked, and I think the way Havertz plays is maybe because that's not as clear for a lot of fans right now exactly what he does. It's still, it's a picture that's still forming. The impact then on Martinelli is then blurrier still, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, if we were like, well, that's what Havertz does, so what's the impact on Martinelli? I think because that image is still a little bit blurry, we're still not quite sure what's going on with Martinelli.
Yeah, I feel like with Martinelli as well, fans just want to see the goals for themselves, for the FPL points. They want those goals,
buddy.
They need
Where
the goals.
Are the goals, buddy?
But it opens up a conversation though. Have you seen the debates on X? There's people literally saying, X, I'm calling it X is Twitter. It's still Twitter, right? I fall into your trap and George's trap. But what I've seen on Twitter is all these debates about, is he a poor player? Should we replace him? And it's just opposite sides of the spectrum where some people believe he's obviously going to just come through it, and some people think, no, listen, he actually should be replaced. I've heard people saying Mudryk should be signed from Chelsea at this point. That's how bad it's been at some points on Twitter. Yeah. But of course, that's the ends of it. But let's talk about potential solutions then. If it is a problem, let's talk about a solution that some fans have put forwards. The tacticals have put forwards massively. A swap of Havertz and Ødegaard. And the idea that Havertz would give Saka that dynamic running overlap, and that Ødegaard would give the passing profile to maximise Gabriel Martinelli. Is that a viable solution?
I will come to that. I just also want to say, and I want to reiterate it because I said it before on the podcast, and I think it's really worth saying. What happens is we put Saka and Martinelli in the same camp, and we expect two players at the age of 22 to be as consistent as Bukayo Saka, essentially. And it kind of reduces how special what Saka is doing is by expecting Martinelli to do it as well. It's like, no, what Saka is doing on that wing is completely, it's a freak. It's a complete freak. So if we're trying to find exactly who this player is, there are question marks about where he stands, where he goes, what does his future look like? Is he going to be replaced? All these things. That's natural for a 22-year-old winger, who, by the way, I believe is currently the furthest away from his ceiling in the team. I think he's got so much to do. And I think he's still a little bit raw in terms of how he approaches play, in terms of he still stopping and starting sometimes. I think he doesn't quite know when to slow down. I think Arteta actually said that in his press conference, and I thought it before, so I'm a genius. No, but I think there's a long way to go for Martinelli because I believe in the player so much. That said, in that gap, I think there'll be lots of question marks, which is what I've said before. I think his place will be questioned. But then coming on to this solution, I'm open to it. I don't briefly to explain. Probably maybe I could do George's accent and do essentially what he'd say. But it's about complementary wing partners, and the idea that you have a runner with someone who wants more ball to feet on both sides, and that would make sense if you had someone who's a little bit more ball to feet with Ødegaard on the left with Martinelli, and vice versa with Havertz on the right with Saka. I don't hate it. The only thing I'd say is I think at the moment, Ødegaard, if you flip his side, it changes how he approaches play from a wider sense. And I think if you look at what Ødegaard is doing this season, his role has massively changed. And maybe something we need to sort of come to on the podcast and stuff and really break down. But the way he's playing, and again, I always encourage people to listen to the press conferences because Arteta reveals loads, and people just don't. They only clip up like the transfer stuff, but actually he talks loads about like how he's using players this season and stuff. So it's always fascinating. It's always fascinating to see how people take what he said and don't quite. The sense of what he said isn't quite exactly what they represented as. But anyway, but yeah, he said with Ødegaard something like one of my answers on here, which was in certain games, we need certain players to do certain things because certain opposition do certain things. And Ødegaard is your guy who, against Man City, okay, they're pressing in this way with Rico Lewis, right? We need Ødegaard in these spaces. He's your guy who can be the kind of Swiss Norwegian army knife and do whatever. If you take him out of that right slot, I don't know how well he functions on the left-hand side, not in the final third. Receiving the ball, is that on a favourable angle? I don't know. Does he get in the way of Declan Rice at that point, who tends to drift to the left a little bit in the first phase? I don't know. Is he in Zinchenko's way? I don't know. So there's lots of question marks with there. In the final third, I see it. I'm open to it. I don't know, but I also, again, I'm loath to move Havertz away from somewhere where I feel like he's starting to build up a bit of form, starting to build up a bit of rhythm. If we've been saying all season about how, okay, well, he's finding his feet on the left-hand side, he's making these connections, then we pull him away from it. That feels a little bit unfair. So I don't know. I'm open to it. If it works, then fantastic, and we'll all be waxing lyrical about it. But I don't. Again, it's another one like Martinelli where it's not top of my list.
Yeah, there's always a reason why Mikel Arteta does something. He is so specific and precise that if Ødegaard's playing on the right,
it's not an accident.
Yeah, he's done that. There's a reason behind that. And say what Havertz on the left is an idea behind everything. And I think there was have you seen the passing
and that, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but that is a really, really important point that I see in a lot of analysis is people essentially, they'll see Mikel or anything, they'll see a football manager do it, disagree with it, and then say all the reasons it's wrong. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but they have made a decision to do that on purpose. So for me, it's more interesting to hear someone try and explain why that's happened and then be able to toss it up and say, well, I think it's better because of this. But if you're just going, I don't like that, and here's what he should do, you completely ignored the fact that someone's made that decision, and there's some really interesting analysis there. So I think it's really important that people remember that he does it on purpose. So that's the more interesting thing to talk about often, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is Mikel Arteta versus us football fans as well. I don't think any of us, as much as when you watch Arsenal, watch right. There's not as any of us watch as much of Arsenal as Mikel Arteta. He's probably watched every single game like 25,000 times, right? Yeah. So I'd like to trust that he knows what he's doing, right? But I do believe that in Gabriel Martinelli's sake, I think it takes a few goals, confidence comes into it, and in the final, he's a player that reminds me of a bit of Heung-min Son. He comes a lot in spurts. Saka's way. Saka's a lot more consistent every course of the season. Martinelli will come in the spurt of he'll have 10 games that he'll score 10 goals in a row, or 10 goals and 10 assists and something like that. and then you'll have a period where he slows down. And I think that's what he is as a player. And, and he is still 22, 23, very young, by the way, right? So let's give him time.
Very young.
Bukayo is also very young as well. And Bukayo has caused a bit of controversy. I don't know why. It was just a little simple shove, but there was something about seeing Klopp's face though, as he looked at Bukayo going, what are you doing, mate? I like that. Yeah. I like that. But they were talking about how Bukayo Saka barged. Tsimikas barged. He slipped. That's what happened. If you watch the back, he slipped and he kind of pushed Tsimikas, and who, of which I think, has broken his collarbone, which is not things you want to see. But it sparked a rivalry, Alex. Paul versus the Arse. Arsenal versus Liverpool. Weird choice of words, Bhavs. I think what it was, right, was Liverpool fans since then they've not let go of it. And we're talking now, this is Boxing Day, past Boxing Day now as well. And they're still talking about it. About it. It feels like now a new rivalry is starting, a proper rivalry. Before Liverpool saved Arsenal once upon a time when they helped beat Spurs in the Champions League final, we appreciated that. But now we're not bros anymore. We're rivals. All right? And we're fighting. And I feel like what it feels like now is there's something brewing there. But how do you feel about it? Do you think there's a serious rivalry building here between Liverpool and Arsenal? Maybe even a title rivalry?
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To hear the full episode, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod.